On tonight's show, for the final time, we will have Mizzou football coach Gary Pinkel with us. He will be with us for the entire hour tonight. Friday in Fayetteville, mark Coach Pinkel's final game as the Tigers head coach. Tigers lose the game against Arkansas 28-3. We'll talk about that coming up in just a bit. Also news today from Missouri's Director of Athletics, Mack Rhodes. Following this weekend's football games, there have been significant discussions nationally concerning 5 and 7 teams participating in bowl games. After careful consideration, we have decided it is not in the best interest of our program to seek permission from the NCAA to participate in a bowl game. Our focus remains on identifying the right leader of our program and moving forward with the transition process. That was released earlier this afternoon from the Tigers Director of Athletics, Mack Rhodes. So in the meantime, let's turn to the coach. And you know, it's really weird. As I stood at the podium a couple of Mondays ago during your news conference, right before your news conference, it was almost somewhat surreal. I said it to a few people. We knew this day was going to come, right? We knew at some point in time that it was going to be a time when you decided that you were going to do something else. None of us just saw it at this point in time, and so it just felt really, really strange going back a couple of Mondays ago. I can't even imagine how it felt for you when you stood up there at the podium that day.
Well, I didn't imagine it for me either. I didn't plan this. And as I mentioned before, for me, I planned on like going another 3 or 4 more years, and then and then after recruiting's over in February, kind of say, hey, this next year to my staff to give me a heads up, I might keep it within the family, but I'm gonna maybe think about retiring then. But I had no. There's no way. I mean, but it's amazing, because after I got some treatments and I was fine, I feel fine, and in August, like I mentioned before, all of a sudden. Time, healthy time. How much healthy time am I going to have? How am I going to use my healthy time?
Yeah.
And when you coach, you don't ever think about time. You think you're going to be done with. You're going to be recruiting. You're going to go to your bowl game. You're going to recruit the whole month of January. You're gone 5 days a week. You work 7 days a week, and that's a tough thing family wise that you kind of deal with. That's why the wives and families are so awesome to understand our business. And all of a sudden I'm thinking about time. And so off and on I went, and then obviously went to the break week, and then I just kind of had to sort it all out and did the right thing. I think for myself without question. And I love coaching football. What are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. You're going to pay me to coach football? And bottom line is, it was the right thing to do, and feel very comfortable about that. Obviously, I'm going to miss a lot of it. Somebody asked me today, were you in the office today? Yeah, I was in the office today, but I'm kind of cleaning some stuff out of my desks and things like that.
I said this, and you'll remember the conversation. It was on the Mondays, and for those that just a little, I guess, insider, is that when we tape his pregame show, it took us about 13 years to kind of finally figure this out, that what's the best day of the week to tape his pregame show. And when we first started, I'd come to town early on Friday, meet him like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was, you better be there at 10 o'clock, because if I'm not there and it's 10:01, then Kelly's in trouble. So I always made sure that I was there early. Sometimes someone else was a little bit late, but that's another story for another day.
I always called.
You did, and it was remarkable. He'd say to Ann, his terrific secretary, he says, tell Mike I will be there by 10:06, and at 10:05:30 he would come walking through the door, consistently. But we finally figured out that Mondays were the best day to go ahead and tape his pregame show. So the last couple of years, we've been taping it on Mondays. But in the Monday after the BYU game, we were sitting down, we were talking about it. I looked you in the eye and I said this, I'm proud of you. Mm-hmm. And I really am, because I think of where you are in your life right now. I think of all the many blessings that you have in your life right now, many of them right in front of you right now. And so many times the selfish temptation that people would have is say, I got to keep doing this. And you didn't. And for that reason, I'm so proud of the way you've handled it.
Well, I appreciate that, and it boiled down to, embrace the good times and battle the tough times when it ever happens. And so, it was the right thing to do, and I feel very, very comfortable with it. And, look forward to whatever I'm going to do. Hopefully I'm going to work something out with the university and make a contribution to the university some way. And I'll always be a Mizzou fan, and certainly want to make sure we get that, help and, fundraising or whatever I can do to help the facility wise, because we need to keep growing. Who's ever the next head football coach, we need to keep investing. We need to build, and we need to build a awesome football complex in that stadium. And so I've got an invested interest, and I want Mizzou football to go greater than what Gary Pinkel and his staff did. And by the way, staff-wise, I've been so fortunate to have great coaches around me, and I've heard from most all of them. And when you have a reasonable amount of success, which we did, there's a lot of good people that are part of that, and that's all truly a blessing.
So many things that we want to cover over the course of this show, and it's not going to be, Gary Pinkel, this is your life. We're going to try to keep it upbeat, but talk about some things that drove you along the way, and so we'll get to some of those as the show progresses. Let's go back, though, to last Friday. And is there any other way to describe the weather than just absolutely miserable Friday afternoon? As we came on the air, I said, folks, I don't know how to tell you this, but it is just absolutely miserable in Fayetteville, Arkansas today.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly. And wind and rain. And I coached University of Washington for 12 years in Seattle. And they call that liquid sunshine, so... it's I've been in worse environments than that before, and when you're out there playing, and you're out there coaching, you really don't get caught up in it that much. And you recall the Texas A&M game year ago, which was a huge game for us a year ago. We just the weather was just, it is what it is, and you have to adjust and you have to go.
The game itself, and again, we had a chance to talk before the game on Thursday evening, and you said this, is that with all the different things that your football team has been dealing with over the last several weeks, despite having good practices, your focus really wasn't where it should have been or where it needed to be, correct?
Yeah, the focus was not even, what it takes to play and to play your best. And, I thought my kids and coaches, but you have coaches and kids that are, they're talking to each other in meetings, are you going to be here? I don't know. Are you going to be here? I don't know. Yeah. I think when I left, they thought, well, they're going to move somebody else in. Let's just get going. And all of a sudden they find out that some coaches might not be there. All of them might not be there. I don't know how all that's going to fall down and what's going to happen. But it was just, they had a great attitude and worked hard and everything else, but it just was not, we had a lot of things that have happened this year, and Russell Hansbrough, he was in my office today. He was healthy the last 3 games of the year. And the first play of the season has a great run in his ankle. And, Harold Brantley we lost during the summer. And then, a couple of the events that we had going on with suspensions that we had, right. 2 suspensions. I can go on and on. And if you take the 2 previous year divisional championships, we had 0. We had nothing that it affected our football team. And so there's lessons to learn there too, but sometimes things happen and you got to deal with them and do the best you can. And at the end of the day, and I said this a couple years ago too, we had all those injuries and, there's reasons why all those things happen. But at the end of the day, it's still my responsibility to find a way to win 6 games. So, I take responsibility for that. And I didn't want it to end like this. But what a ride! For me to be able to be a part of this, and when I was at the press conference 15 years ago, December 1, what happened was I said that I wanted to build a program that's respected in the Big 12 and respected nationally. At the end of the day, when it's all done, that people have respect for University of Missouri football. And not only in the Big 12, but then we went to the SEC. And I think at the end of the day, we have a lot of respect. And I think we've set the bar, and there's, I think, a lot of things in place. And so, again, I think somebody's going to come in here and take it higher than Gary Pinkel ever did it.
You mentioned 15 years ago, and in fact, this guy's probably going to be upset that I mentioned this, but he's a good enough friend that I really don't care. But he was a member of the Board of Curators 15 years ago, and he was on the Board of Curators when you were hired, and he lives in Springfield, Missouri. And when he found out this was going to be your last show, because he was here at the beginning, he wanted to make sure that he was here for the last show. Sean McGinnis drove all the way up from Springfield.
I saw Sean over there. Wow.
It's great to see him.
It's hard to pick the top 10 games that you've coached at Mizzou, because there's so many that are meaningful, some more meaningful than maybe our fans even know, that kind of what was going on within our team. But that day will go down. I remember when you go play in the Rose Bowl, and in Pasadena, the Rose Bowl, sitting down in the valley, and you take this road down, and you go through, and then when you're driving up to the Rose Bowl, sitting by itself, you have the fans. At the time I was at Washington, the Husky fans are on there pounding on the buses as it goes by. Well, we go into Arrowhead Stadium. We pull into Arrowhead Stadium, and you saw, way over, you saw the KU fans, and then all our fans and all the fans are up there, and they're pounding on the buses, man. And that environment was, I think they had game day there that day, and it was also a bit chilly, cold, and the fans were up the entire time, and KU was a very, very good football team.
Very good.
And I knew before that game started that would be the biggest game in the history of these two teams playing forever. Because I think they were rated 1 or 2, and we were rated like 4th or something like that. And then after that win, we ended up being ranked number 1 in the nation. And so that was a big day for not only our players and myself as one of the coaches, but certainly our fans. That was a great day for Mizzou football.
Let's stay with that thought just about the focal point, because that was what made the game so big, is that not just the Missouri fans and the Kansas fans were locked in on that game, but for that particular Saturday evening in Kansas
Nationally,
City,
yep.
The eyes of the nation were locked in on Missouri and Kansas. And it elevated the rivalry, and it elevated the opportunity to a whole nother level that Missouri hadn't been at.
Yeah, and it was awesome. It was when you're in the game, you're kind of so focused. You just kind of just do what you do, and make it minute by minute through, and make sure you make the right decisions and so on, so forth. But at the end of the day, and after the game was over, and that sack Lorenzo had in the end zone. I vividly remember that drive and what they were doing, and we were fortunate to get him down there.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the conversations that you had with your players after that game?
Any conversations with the players? I know.
Yeah, I'm sure, because it was just so much excitement.
Yeah.
Chase was terrific in the game, obviously.
Yeah.
Denario Alexander with a touchdown reception in the game, and of course, Lorenzo Williams late.
There's just so many great plays in games like that, and it was a battle. I mean, they were really good. So it's fun being a part of that.
Let's so that was one of the obviously moments, and there are many more that we're going to look back at. But as this is all kind of sorted out over the last several weeks, several people have reached out to me and said, just kind of thoughts and perspective, if you will. And I've said this many times, is that you and your staff don't get enough credit for the players that you develop and you have developed. Guys that have come in with not a lot of stars, not a lot of recognition, but they leave as a lot of times college graduates, number one, but also guys that go on to have an opportunity to play at the next level. But the other thing too is let's think back to 15 years, because when you arrived, it was coming off of Larry Smith. He had given Missouri fans a little bit of hope because of back-to-back bowl games in 97 and 98, but then it kind of fell off. You came in and you had a focus and you had a vision, and you knew basically how to get it done and how to establish your program. And the other thing that I don't think you get enough credit for is not taking the answer no, not accepting no. Those before you had a tendency to accept no. Well, we can't do this because of this. Well, we can't do that. And I can remember, were always very firm. No. We have to kick through this hurdle here and move forward. Share some of those experiences.
Well, that's what I got here. That's what we did. I mean, I'd say, well, we're going to do it different. Well, we don't do it that way.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do it that way now.
Yeah.
I mean, that went on and on and on and on. I remember I got everybody that touches my players, so all the academic people, all the numbers of people that touch my players. We got all the trainers, and medical staff. We got the equipment staff, the strength and conditioning staff. I had a meeting with all of them, and number one, told them that what happens between these walls or in these walls. Number one. Number two is, if anybody's negative and tears down anything, you're not going to be here, okay? We're not going to have that kind of environment around here. If a player is disrespectful to you and is whining and moaning and groaning, you're not allowed to help him. You send him up to see us so we can help them. And so we had to set some standards, and really all the different And that's really what I did. Is we had to set your academic and get the infrastructure there that you needed. We needed that in the medical with Rex Sharp and Pat Smith, and in the medical side and in the strength and conditioning side, we had to do it, and the equipment and the food service, and really in the coaching and what we do, and really the infrastructure of these systems. We were making sure that we were making daily progress. Just when you come into work, when you leave, and that's what I told him. Are we better when you left when you came in? I mean, by day. So it wasn't like, let's see what it's like in 3 months. And really, that's just how we started climbing through it. And it was difficult. Mm-hmm. I mean, I asked myself many, many, many times why I came here. And sometimes I didn't have a good answer for myself, okay? And you remember losing season. Then 2003, we had a winning season. And then the deciding moment was that next year, in 2004, we had a losing season again. Mm-hmm. So 3 out of the 4 years I was here, we had a losing season. And this is where Mike Alden comes in. And I told Mike when he hired me, I said, there's going to have a time when everybody wants me out of here, and I'm going to need you to stand up and say, he's my guy. And that was the year. That was kind of defining moment there. And because what they did in the past when things got tough, they just they get frustrated, just fire, bring another guy in,
Absolutely.
another guy. Before you know it, in 15 years you've had 6 coaches. So it was difficult, but we kind of worked through it and plowed through it, and the good Lord gave us a catalyst named Brad Smith.
Mm-hmm.
We needed someone to come in here and help us. We needed and then this freak athlete that's one of the great people I've ever met. We all remember Brad Smith in the Illinois game when he's first redshirt freshman, and oh my gosh, everybody was looking at each other going, holy smokes, where'd this guy come from? And what a remarkable career he had. And so that was kind of the beginning, and there was nothing easy about it. And we've had our, in our business, you got your ups and downs all the time, and ultimately how you battle through the tough times determine the outcome of what you're going to be.
We just heard the highlight of Tony Temple from the '08 Cotton Bowl. And at the end of that highlight, we heard a voice that I've been yearning to hear for quite a while, since he left us last fall. And that, of course, is Coach Cadillac.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever told you this story, but there were 2 times when he and I worked together when I looked over and I saw tears in his eyes. And one was in 1997, Missouri won at Colorado to end 13 consecutive years of losing football. And the other was that day, because Missouri football had returned to a level that he always wanted to be.
Yeah. Coach Cadillac was awesome. That was that Cotton Bowl. That was in the old Cotton Bowl.
The old Cotton Bowl.
The original one. And Tony Temple, just what a day. I mean, and they carried him off the field at the end because he had cramps or something was happening to his legs. And I remember Chase Daniel threw an interception in that game. We didn't throw the ball particularly well in that game. We threw it well all year. We didn't, not that particular game. But Chase Daniel threw a ball. Then he went and hit the guy so hard he created a fumble. We got the ball back.
Right.
So that's a little determination that Chase Daniel had. But that was just an ending of a heck of a year. I think we ended up 4th in the nation that year, and that's kind of just brought Mizzou back to a national level or up to a national level.
Right.
Brad Smith kind of helped, and all his teammates. He mentioned Brad's name, but quarterbacks obviously stand out. But all the other guys that helped do that, and then got us started winning again. And then in 2007, then it ratcheted up to more of a national game and the Cotton Bowl and a top 5 finish. And it was a big moment for Mizzou football.
Curtis Gregory is listening tonight and sent me a tweet just a moment ago during the break, and he said, Coach, thanks for 5 great years. 07, the game against KU was, in his words, epic. And it's something that he'll never forget. But he also says, how about in 07 and 08, when the majority of your offensive linemen were Missouri 1A kids, that your staff developed into pretty good offensive linemen?
Yeah, well, Curtis is a great young man, and it was I don't really look where they're from or anything. I noticed Curtis would do that. Certainly they're Mizzou people, Mizzou Made people, but that's what Mizzou Made's about, and that was kind of the early stages of it, as us in our player development program, and Pat Ivey and those people, and the plan that we had to get that done, and it's so much bigger than just saying they went in and lifted weights. I could sit there and talk to you an hour and a half, 2 hours. I could lecture you on from January 1 until the season's over, all the things that happens in the training that our players go through, and strength training, mental training, flexibility, fundamentals of skill levels in the lifting and things that they do. It's just so much bigger than all those things. But that's what Mizzou Made kind of got going.
I ask players this question throughout the course of the year, and it's appropriate tonight with you. Mike Alden came to you and wanted to lure you away from a place where you were the all-time winningest head coach, and you had other opportunities to leave Toledo. But what was it about Missouri and what was it about Mike that led you to ultimately say, this is where I want to be?
Well, first of all, it was one of my goals was to have all three of my kids, and my daughter Erin's here right now, all three of my kids graduate from the same high school. That was a goal that I had because in my business, it almost never happens. Mm-hmm. And my son Blake, who was our youngest at that time when that season was over at Toledo, he was going to graduate, this was in December at the time, but he's going to graduate that June. And so I think that kind of opened the door for opportunity. I interviewed at Arizona State, turned down an interview at Maryland. We had a big win over Penn State and Joe Paterno at the beginning part of that year, and that was kind of put us back on the map a little bit. And so there was some certain national attention, but I know I just felt good when I got here, and I had a bunch of people, a bunch of coaches call me up and say, what are you doing? 2 winning seasons in 17 years. What are you thinking? And we had our whole football team coming back. They won 2 championships. Tom Amstutz did a great job coaching them on my staff. They won 2 championships the next year after our 10-1 season. And one reason I came was Mike Alden, and I told Mike that I'm going to need you. There's going to be a time, which I talked about before. I'm going to need you, to stand up for me. It's going to happen. And not only one time, it's going to be a bunch. And I just trusted that he would do that. And I felt he did that. People always talked about Missouri being the only, Division I program in the state of Missouri. Mm-hmm. They talked about St. Louis, Kansas City. They talked about population. And everybody just shook their heads as, why can't you win in Missouri? Are you kidding? Mm-hmm. Why would you not be able to do it? And so people in our business talked about it a lot. And I just had a gut feeling it was the right thing to do. Now, I didn't quite feel that way, the whole first 2 or 3 years. But I say that kiddingly because, you question, yourself occasionally when things are so bad that you feel like you want to shoot yourself. And so, but at the end of the day, we stuck with the plan. And that's what happened in 2000. I remember Mike came to me. We met in Lakota's, which I've met some of my coffee friends here. We meet Lakota's all the time. And we met there after that fourth season and that losing season. We didn't go to a bowl. So winning, losing, or lose, win, then lose. And Mike said to me, and he never told me I had to make staff changes or anything else, but he looked at me and he said, do you think we should make some changes here now? And quite frankly, I always think in my business, I see it happen. I'm seeing it happen right now around the country, that head coaches kind of save their butt and give up other coaches, whether it's the right thing to do or not, And I'm not calling anybody out or anything. I just see that in my business. But I told him just the opposite. I think that what we need now is more than ever is everybody staying, everybody working hard, and players to see the continuity, and then we're not changing anything we do because what we do works. And eventually they're going to get it. And I think we're right close. And he just said, that's fine. And he just left it there. There's other ADs who would sit there and say, well, if you want to keep your job, you better make some changes. He didn't do that. And we talked about that, and I reminded him, 4 years earlier, in December, right before, I went to that press conference about how I'm going to need you. And he really showed up. And Mike Alden did, you see what this place was like before Mike Alden got here in terms of the entire athletic department and some of the great successes in all the other sports that we've had also. And the respect nationally of not only Mizzou in football, but in many, many other sports. So, Mike did a great job here. And by the way, he's doing pretty good. But he'll always be a Missouri Tiger. So.
Do you remember the day you were introduced? And do you remember your drive from the Reynolds Alumni Center back to Matsy when you got a phone call from David Yost that said, oh, by the way, our only scholarshiped cornerback is having surgery?
No, there was 2 things. Once right after the press conference, they drove me back. And if you go down and if you that Texas, it would say Mac Brown, head football coach. Urban Meyer, head football coach, if you could drive in Columbus. When I drove up to see my parking spot, it said football coach. And my first thinking was, I just took the job, that they don't even put your name up anymore. I mean, they're revolving guys here so fast. And so then I went back and we're at the Holiday Inn, and I get a call, and I'm going to greet bunch of the fans at the Holiday Inn, and get excited about doing that. And all of a sudden I get a call from Dave Yost. I brought him down with me, and he said, I got good news and bad news. And I said, well, what's that? And he says, well, the good news is we have one corner on scholarship. And so you got to understand, I just took this job, and I'm excited about it. We got one corner on scholarship. I said, okay, what's the bad news? And he said he's having surgery tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'll be very honest with you, I was numb. I mean, I was numb. I sat down on the couch, and I just told him, I yelled at him or something, and hung up the phone. And I just sat there for about 2 minutes and gathered myself, and I said, what did I get myself into? And anyway, that was quite a day. The press conference, one of the guys asked me how we're going, why I was going to fail. I mean, I never asked anybody. Nobody ever asked me, about failing. It's never happened to me before. I mean, I don't know who the guy was, but I mean, he just asked me about failing, and I just told him, I don't think like that. We don't ever think like that. And anyway, it was a lot of things happened. There was a lot of things that had take place to build this football program, and I think the infrastructure is very, very sound and in very, very good shape now, and that's means a lot to me as I turn it over and hand it on to somebody else.
At the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Jerry's World in 2014, as Missouri got the strip sack from Michael Sam, the return by Shane Ray, and the thing that I remember about that is that we kept waiting for Michael Sam to make a play. They were so obviously well prepared that they were bound and determined the SEC Defensive Player of the Year was not going to impact the game, but when he needed to impact the game, he did.
Yeah, and he huge play, and that was a heck of a game. That's a great place to play a football game, and AT&T Stadium, and Jerry Jones and. We had Mizzou fans in that building, and that was what a play. I mean, if you knew as a coach it was going to work out for you, you'd like that stuff to happen all the time. But just for our fans and everything, you talk about a great play in history of University of Missouri, and there was obviously a lot of plays that led up to that, but certainly a play that just changed the game. The game is over.
We've got to get to a break here in the next couple of minutes, but it's appropriate at this point in time to talk about Michael Sam, because that was a situation, an opportunity for not only you but for the program to do something that rarely has been done. Yeah. When I say Michael Sam, what do you remember about that point in time?
I just saw Michael today. Actually, he was lifting weights, came up and gave me a hug, and he said, "I'm sorry for being all sweaty." I said, "I've hugged you a lot of times, and you've been sweaty on that football field." It was just, I think when it was going to happen at some university somewhere. I knew it would never happen to me as a head football coach, to have to deal with something like that. But again, the infrastructure was set, and we had to do a men for men's deal and women for women. And interestingly enough, that was one topic that was brought up months before. And we always talk about being respectful of other cultures, and it wasn't right or wrong. There were judgments there, and for our football team, it was just being respectful, And I think that had a huge impact not only in our football team, but as that national story came out, I think people kind of looked at it a little bit differently. That regardless how you view some things, sometimes it's still just basic human respect for people. And I think that had a huge impact on a lot of lives around this country and a lot of lives around the world. And it took Michael Sam a lot of courage to do that. And I was so very, very proud of my players. It was interesting when that happened. Coach Kulagowski said they were in a meeting and Michael Sam came out. And I said, "Really?" And I was back at my house. And then so the next day I bring in our captains, LaDamian Washington, a couple of the other guys. They walk in. I said, "How's the team doing?" They said, "We're going to be okay. We're going to be fine." I said, "Really?" So you got to let me know. And I just have to trust those guys. And at the end of the day, we were. And it was amazing how our team. And everybody said that they thought I called a team meeting. I asked them, "Should I call a team meeting and talk to the team?" They said no. He said, our players are okay. And at the end of the day, everybody thought that I was going to, that I called a team meeting and say, don't you say anything about this, don't you. We never said a word. We never even talked about it. It was just their respect for their teammate, and they were going to keep it internal. And at the time when I called Michael in the next day and said, what do you want to do? If you want to talk about it in the media tomorrow, that's fine. You want to talk it after the season, you let me know. And he says, well, I don't really want to cause anything with our football team right now, so I'd rather just wait till after the season's over. So whenever you want to do it, you let me know. And after the season was over, I brought him to my office. I said, what do you want to do? He said, I'll wait till after the bowl's over. And then he did it when he felt it was the right time to do it. So incredible story. I feel very fortunate to be a part of that. I think there were some great lessons learned. And he's a great young man, and it's just you get in this business, you never know you're going to go through some things like that. But again, I think that it was a impact in many, many ways other than just our football program.
We talked about the 2 Cotton Bowl appearances. One game I want to bring up, though, 2003, the one against Nebraska.
Yeah,
that was significant to say the least.
The first time, I don't know how many years.
25 years.
25 years. The first time we'd beat Nebraska. And I'll never forget that game either, because that was the first big win we had in our football program. And Nebraska was a very good football team, and I just remember after the game that it was just crazy. I mean, you couldn't even go anywhere. There were fans all over the place going nuts. I think they dragged the goalpost downtown, and when things like that happen, everything was different. I used to have, was the last time we beat Kansas State at Kansas State? When was the last time we beat Colorado at Colorado? When was the last fight in Nebraska? I'd put that up in my players, not in their face, but just to let them know we got to keep breaking these things, these barriers down. And then when we did it, they felt so good about themselves, it helped motivate them to do it again. And not that we hit it every time, but if you go back and look at my Thursday meetings that I had back in those years, there were so many barriers from a confidence level that we had to break down. I can't tell you how many times people told me about, well, that's bad. Oh gosh, the end zone there, this happened, when we played Nebraska. And oh gosh, Colorado, we can never win there. And, just grumpy people, man. We got to change our attitude around this place. And thank heavens we started winning games and actually scoring some touchdowns in those end zones where people said, "Hey, that's this magical hatred thing that was happening to Mizzou is gone." So it just drove me crazy, because all I wanted my players to be positive. Who cares about the past? Let's go forward. And then we had some of the, I call them the Ziggy principle. These life's so tough. So anyway, don't get me started.
No, a couple minutes left, and there are a couple other things I want to touch on real quick. First of all, there was more to Gary Pinkel than just his football program and just his football team. From the word go, you were very involved in this community with a lot of different charities that are so thankful for what you've done for them over the course of the last 15 years. Boys and Girls Club, Score Against Hunger, and the Food Bank of Central and Northeast Missouri, Special Olympics in particular. So there's so many of those people that are so thankful for what you've done and the awareness that in your position you've brought to them along the way.
Well, that's kind of a platform that you get, and you want to help people. You want to reach out and help people, and like many other coaches do, and other people here do the same thing, volunteer, give their time to help others, and I want to get involved in the community, and it was also good for our players to get involved in the community, which they still do. All our student athletes do. They get involved in community service. It's a great lesson to learn, about reaching out to other people and helping other people more so than yourself. And so, I thank you for that. But there's a lot of people. Columbia's a great place. It's a very giving place and a caring place, and it's neat to be a part of it.
30 seconds left in your final show.
Well, I just want to, first of all, thank everybody that comes here. I mean, I go around some of these tables, and for the last 15 years, it's amazing how all you have changed. And I look just the same. So that was just kind of something I noticed. I didn't really want to bring it up, but I thought I might bring it up here. But no, to all you folks that come here, very appreciative of it. I'll always be a Missouri Tiger. I got, I'll help in any way to help continue to, my little part in building the program. We'll hire the right guy for the right reasons. And to all the Mizzou fans out there, love you. And just keep committed, man. Just keep fighting, because we can become greater and greater and greater. But the masses of Mizzou people are the ones that are going to get that done. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. Thank you.